So I'm gonna, because I'm probably the only liberal arts major up here, I'm gonna just explain what this might mean in your own home for those people who are not scientists. How does, we're all basically Neanderthals, right? And we expect if we want heat, we gotta burn something, wood, gas, something. So how is it that this new technology, these heat pumps actually work? Well, they aren't all that new. We've had this technology, all of us have grown up with it. It's in your fridge. And the technology works, right? On a really hot day when it's 95 degrees in my house, I can go to my freezer, open it up, and find the popsicles are still frozen. What a heat pump does is the same as your fridge. It moves temperature instead of creating it. So so in the summer, it moves heat out of your house. In the winter, it moves heat into your home. Because it's moving heat and not creating it, it's much more efficient. For every 1 unit of electricity energy used, it can move 4 or more units of temperature, of heating or cooling. In your own home, what would happen in my home? It would, instead of having gas in a service line being piped into my basement, I would have water in a pipe being brought to my basement at a constant temperature. In my basement would be a heat exchanger or a heat pump, and that would pump the heat off that it wanted, that I needed, off of that from the water, and put that through my distribution system, which in my case turns out to be a radiator. And my neighbor, I could have my house at 65 degrees, my neighbor could have it at 75 degrees, she could have a different kind of distribution system, it would all work out. The water would be returned afterward at a different temperature. If I took a lot of heat off, the water would be returned cooler, right? The boreholes underneath the street would return the water to the original temperature so the other homes could take from that to get their own temperature. You don't see a lot of geothermal systems installed in Massachusetts, and that's mostly because here, it's generally just one building at a time. That doesn't allow for, that's really gonna jack up the cost, right? 60% of the cost with geothermal is simply getting the drill rig to the site. If you do 100 buildings instead at a time, street after street, that's gonna really drop the price. The next problem, however, is if all of the buildings are exactly the same with the same, all homes with the same sort of energy use, they're all gonna be wanting heat, in the winter between like 5 and 7 a.m. That's not gonna allow for a lot of efficiencies. So it's with mixed use instead that you see the greatest possible gains, as Alex said. If you have that, then you have an office building or a supermarket or a hockey rink or a data center, taking an enormous amount of cooling off the system and returning the water hot that then can be reused in the homes down the street or can be stored in the ground. Because the ground can store that energy, that temperature for a really long time. The more diverse the use, the more efficient the system, because it can then take the wasted energy and either reuse it or store it. And because it turns out that the biggest energy storage system on the planet is the planet.
So I hope I'm not going to try, how are we all doing? I hope I'm not going to try your patience by telling you a few more things. We just want you to know a few more things, and then we're going to do questions and answers. So in case you're wondering, we aren't the only ones that are onto this idea. The International Ground Source Heat Pump Association is currently writing their first set of code for shared loop geothermal. In part because of the excitement of a number of case studies like this one here, Colorado Mesa University. It's in Grand Junction, Colorado, so yes, they have snow too. And it was built by Gray Edge Group's Carrie Smith. And let's see, I've got some numbers. It is a 4,000 ton system. It serves 16 buildings totaling 1.2 million square feet. The gas backup hasn't fired in more than 10 years. And the performance has continuously improved as they've added buildings to the system, just as expected. So we're working with them to get this case study out, and we're collecting a lot more case studies. And we're connecting to all kinds of experts like Gray Edge and some of the folks here today. But we're also collecting potential system benefits. And to me, this is really exciting. So humor me. Let's see, I need a clicker. All right, I'm gonna run through these quickly. So Audrey's right. The largest long-term energy storage on Earth is the Earth. And it may also be the cheapest. As we move to more sun and wind energy, long-term storage is increasingly important for our electric grid, and our proposed network could serve as storage, and it can also connect to additional storage reservoirs. The system also helps the electric grid go renewable by cutting summer peaks. Geothermal is known to do this, but brought to scale as suggested, the impact could be very significant as our summers get hotter. And those hotter summers, one prediction, I believe for Cambridge, suggests that we will transition from a heating climate, like dominant heating, to a cooling climate, dominant cooling, in 2070. So that's extraordinary. And none of our current systems are designed for that. The system we're proposing is inherently flexible and can adapt to our changing needs, which I think is important. It can also be integrated, as Alex shared, into infrastructure plans under our streets, like the City of Boston's proposed utility corridors. And, you know, I think it'd be great if we put our electric wires underground at the same time while we're digging up the streets. Things that are underground are inherently resilient, particularly in disasters. The GeoMicroDistrict, with its fusion of local energy generation and interconnected energy management, is inherently a resilient design. And it's safe. If a pipe, for example, gets overpressurized, we could cope with the resulting puddle. Finally, and I think most importantly, Massachusetts is currently pursuing renewable heat one house at a time, meaning it's mostly those with means and motivation that are transitioning, and it's not fast enough. Creating a renewable thermal utility can ensure that all of our residents have equal and affordable access to clean, safe, renewable heat and cooling. All right, so my list can go on, but I'm gonna stop, I promise. And let's talk about moving this idea forward. We need clearly to move from a desktop feasibility study to a pilot in the ground so that we can get real data to work with and plan with here in Massachusetts. To do that, we of course need all of you, your feedback, get your cards, your ideas, your support, and we need pilot site locations. As of today, we're building a database of the willing, people who, given a choice, are willing to consider joining a pilot. Did I mention free weatherization and appliances? Please let us know if you're one of them. We have also already begun meeting with towns, with housing authorities, municipal utilities, anyone who will talk to us, to collect many possible sites. With multiple potential sites in hand, then comes the design and install, request for proposals, and eventually the breaking ground. Obviously, there are 100 or more steps within each of those next steps and a lot of work, especially to do this as fast as we would like to. But we believe the time is now. As we invest heavily in gas infrastructure, we need to look at whether this is the right choice for Massachusetts. So it is essential at this stage that we spread the idea. And One Way Heat is doing that together with Mothers Out Front, has been hosting Taste the Future cooking events. These events, of course, have good food, but they also educate people about induction cooking, heat pumps, and other renewable-ready appliances. After all, we need the will of the people behind this effort if it's going to happen. And hopefully, with the will of the people, the Future Act legislation can serve to clear the way for our gas utilities to choose to transition to renewable thermal and be rewarded for that choice. Again, spreading the word, supporting these efforts at any level will help make it happen better and faster. And we really, really do want to share. To be clear, all of our slides, our work, our ideas, and the results of this feasibility are made available to you for open sharing and adapting under a Creative Commons license. At HEAT, we believe that given the urgency of climate change, we need to spread good ideas and iterate as quickly as possible. So we're really serious when we say we want to co-create this climate solution with you. Finally, we're done. Thank you. Again, whoa, one second. Okay, almost done, I promise. For helping us get the idea this far, and for having, as Audrey said at the very beginning, hope. And perhaps in 2030, when my oldest daughter is 27, she'll get her first apartment and pay her first utility bills. So exciting, right? And have two utilities competing to deliver her renewable energy safely, reliably, and cheaply. She'll have wires bringing her renewable electricity and pipes underground bringing her renewable thermal energy, both of which she will likely totally ignore. But she'll have a choice, and she'll also have a livable climate. Thank you.